Today we have the lovely Ameet Chana, and we are going to be chatting about Ameet's career so far, including Rifco Theatre, him being a presenter on Sunrise Radio, and his career so far. And we're going to be talking a little bit about representation from Bend It Like Beckham to now. So thank you so much, Ameet, for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. And I was just telling you off air that I think it's wonderful the work that you're doing and your colleagues that you work with in order to kind of keep pushing the boundaries and representing South Asians within the arts. I think it's wonderful. So it's a pleasure for me to be here to talk to you.
No, thank you so much. And as I was saying before we started recording, it's great, to see it growing and to actually see people connecting with people that they didn't know before lockdown. That's kind of the aim going forwards. And for people that don't know you, if you could just tell everyone a bit about yourself, what you do, and basically, I like to ask everyone where it all started for you.
So I am probably best known for being an actor over the last, I think this year's 30 years.
Congratulations.
Just over 2 years ago, I became an associate director at Rifco Theatre, which I am still. And feels like last year, but 2019, I directed my first show for the stage called Mushy Lyrically Speaking, which toured the country. And then we put it out digitally as well during the first lockdown. And we kind of reached about 80,000 people around the world, which was amazing for us. We thought we could ever do as a theatre company. But yeah, and like you said at the beginning, I guess probably best known for being in Bend It Like Beckham and EastEnders for a couple of years and thousands of different theatre productions over the last 30 years. But yes, that's basically me in a nutshell. And also I present a weekend breakfast show on Sunrise Radio.
Fantastic. Well, you obviously do so much, so that's what we're going to be talking about. And the question is going to be a mix that I've put together and ones that people have sent in. So the first one, if you could just tell us a bit about your TV career so far and also theatre, and as you mentioned, sort of about EastEnders and starting from Bend It Like Beckham.
It's really strange, my journey, Aarti, because I feel like my mum and dad, particularly my mum, saw something in me before I even knew it was there. I was always that kid that came home and, watched Amitabh Bachchan films and tried to put on vinyls of Michael Jackson. And apparently Elvis Presley, my dad's older brother, used to say that I used to sing a lot of Elvis Presley songs because, he was the man at that time.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's a really strange journey because we moved to Harrow when I was about 13. We were in South London before that. And my mum knew about this place in Wembley called the London Academy of Acting, which is like a Sunday workshop kind of
Yeah.
So she enrolled me in that at the age of 13 or 14. And they had their own agency and they took me on after I finished that course. And funny enough, at the time, and this is something we'll get into further, but I didn't know anything about representation or South Asians or not or whatever. This just happened to be this kind of Sunday school for young British Asians that wanted to break into the kind of world of acting or entertainment. Signed me up and I, completely cluelessly started auditioning for stuff and landing a few and all that. So yeah, so my kind of career started off, I did my first job when I was about 14 or 15, and that was just a corporate video for the London Docklands Development Corporation about kids leaving school and the decisions that the choices that they had. And then I went on to do a TV series called Teenage Health Freak, which was the second season. I was all shot at Uxbridge College, ironically, not too miles from here during a summer holiday. And progressed from there. So I did a load of TV and film. I did a feature film called Wild West when I was still at school. That was about an Asian country and western band in Southall. And then on that set, I met a couple of people, fantastic people. Parv Bansal, who's no longer with us. He amazing kind of prolific playwright. And his brother-in-law, Niran Persaud, they played like the bad guys in this film. And through conversing with them, I discovered that there was a sort of theatre scene, particularly at Waterman's Arts Centre, but they used to run a HAC that was based in Hounslow. And Waterman's Arts Centre had a gentleman there called Hardial Rai that was producing South Asian content. Predominantly written by the likes of Parv Bansal. They used to have comedy nights that had Sanjeev Bhaskar and Nina Wadia. Pravesh Kumar was part of it, who is the artistic director of Rifco. And, it was Nitin Sawhney. People, once a month, we used to put on this comedy night called One Nation Under a Groove in it. And that's it. That's how I discovered the world of theatre. I started touring theatre. I did #1 tours of kind of strange Sherlock Holmes shows that needed one brown person in it. Um, at the court in the beginning of it, and then went on to discover this whole amazing community and an output of South Asian content of work in the theatre.
Yeah, I think that's sort of incredible how you said you didn't really go into it knowing about representation and what it was, because that was sort of the same for me. I didn't really know about this whole world of representation. It's amazing that as you did more shows and projects, you started seeing, you know, other people that look like you, and you were like, oh my god, there's kind of more of a world out there that you didn't know of before.
I like you just said, I didn't know that there was a fight to be fought. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a fight to be fought. There's no way that I could have ever imagined that there was going to be a scene of other people that looked like me. I didn't know there was other Asian actors. You know, I just thought I happened to be this, and I was fortunate enough to get you know, get work.
Yeah.
I started working with and talking to other people that that I realized that there was, you know, a movement and a fight to be had, as it were.
Yeah. No, definitely. And sort of following on from that, obviously, you know, Bend It Like Beckham included a predominantly South Asian cast. So how was that experience when you found out that you were going to be in a film that represented South Asian stories at the time, and working with so many South Asian artists? Because I've been in conversations over lockdown, and people, obviously it's 20 years later, people still are referring to, you know, Bend It Like Beckham, how that's one of the only sort of things out there that represents us. So how was that whole experience?
Yeah, I suppose for me, by the time I did Bend It, I was very aware and now is woke, you know, because of the amazing people I was surrounding myself with, who were much more aware of it. I was a kid, you know. I did 10 years of touring theatre before I even knew that, you know, like I said, that any of that was existent. And I was with an Asian agency, so I was never made to feel like I wasn't up for the same stuff as everybody else, because being an Asian agency, they were only coming there because they wanted Asian actors, you know. And by the time I got to Bend It, you know, probably, I don't know, 23, 25, something like that. And I was much more woke, and I totally understood, you know, where my place was and what I was fighting for and what I needed to push further for. So, you know, Bend It was an amazing celebration of that, because it was, I think, the first time I'd been in a film. I mean, Wild West was really ahead of its time. You know, we shot that film in something like, I think it was 1990, you know, and again, to be surrounded by people that looked like me in a feature film was amazing. But I didn't know. By the time I Bend It, it was really like, this is a celebration. This is happening, and people are going to watch stories about a young Indian girl that wants to play football. You know, that was something that we'd never even dreamt of happening. But, I mean, so yeah, it was groundbreaking in terms of what it stood for, because of its universality, but also such a celebration to be part of. You know, a film, Indian girl playing football. Really? Wow.
I know. You and it's that kind
you
of
don't even have boys playing football. Even still, I mean, you know,
even now.
mean that in a way that it shouldn't be girls. I mean, you know, even that was a far-fetched story, let alone an Indian girl playing football. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it's incredible that so early on there was a film that is sort of starting to break those stereotypes, and I think that's kind of what we need more of.
But it hasn't, Artie, you know, sorry, I know you were moving on then, but
no, continue.
Enough, because, you know, Bend It Like Beckham is going to be 20 years old this year.
So this year?
Yeah, April, I think it was released. So it was released in 2002. Yeah, so 19 this year. 20 years. So, and how many Bend It Like Beckhams have we had?
No.
I don't think there has been another. We've had great TV content and the likes of Riz and Dev and films and all that kind of stuff happening. You know, Paminder's gone on to do great stuff as well, and everyone from that world. But where have the other Bend It Like Beckhams gone? Why was there?
I know. I don't understand, because you would think that would be something to push it further. And, you know, as we're saying, you know, we're 19 years after, and we're not getting as many as we should have. I mean, do you still hear conversations about people referring to Bend It Like Beckham even now?
Just the other day, my dear friend Rishi Rich, the music producer, he lives in Bombay now, and he WhatsApp called me from his studio, which was the middle of the night in Bombay, and he was sat having a drink, with a non-Asian friend of his who happens to be one of the top sort of barmen of India. That people have him at his weddings and all that, and he's phenomenal.
Okay.
He lives out there now, and he's from Australia originally. He's married to a Bengali woman and all that kind of stuff. So he's settled there. And he was WhatsApping me in the middle of the night because he said that this gentleman was a huge fan of Bend It Like Beckham. And it being from Australia, it totally opened up his mind and his mentality about the community of South Asians, wherever they're from, Australia, whatever. And he said every now and again, he goes, if I'm not well, if I'm sitting on a sofa going, I can't move, or if I'm hungover, whatever it goes, I'll put that on and it will just make me feel better. It's
Yeah.
a feel good film, you know, and because we live in the world of social media now, we know when you know repeats of anything is on, because suddenly your timeline goes nuts, sending you pictures of yourself from the TV. It's a strange phenomenon, but you know, I was there, you know. But you just know when it's been, and you know, now it's become one of those amazing films that's a Christmas film or an Easter film or a holiday film, and it's a feel-good film, and everything about it was just right, you know. But yes, in answer to your question, you know, sadly those conversations are still being had because there's no other reference point still.
No, and I've like, not gonna lie, I feel like I've watched that film. I've seen it so many times, but in the past year, like at least 3 or 4 times, because I've been looking for more British Asian films. I mean, there are a few out there, but that is sort of, as you said, a really, really feel good one, and you leave feeling really empowered. So it's still incredible to this day.
People have written dissertations on that film and thesis.
Really? Oh my god!
Just because of everything that it does, that film, you know, it's universal, special, but also it does so many things that nothing else has done before in one place. You know?
Yeah, and I think even outside of the South Asian community, I've heard even my friends say how amazing it is. So it just shows that it's not just for us. It, as you said, it's universal.
Yeah, definitely.
We're going to sort of come on to more about sort of representation and how it's kind of changed. But let's go on to sort of Rifco Theatre. So as you said, you've been an associate director for 2 years. And for everyone out there who doesn't know, Rifco Theatre, it does celebrate and represent Asian stories and our culture. So if you could just tell everyone a bit about your work with Rifco Theatre and how that came about.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, I mean, you summed it up in a really good single sentence there. But, you know, Pravesh Kumar, who's the artistic director and CEO of the company, he set up his own company 20 years ago for exactly this reason. You know, he that wasn't getting the kind of work that he wanted to get, and he was doing work because it was work, but he wasn't always happy about it. You know, he had to pay bills and he wanted to get a CV and all that kind of stuff. So he went, right, sorry, if no one else has given me the work or creating the work that I want to be in, I'm going to do it myself. So him and a couple of friends got together, Harvey Verdi, Gurpreet Kaur Bhatti, the very brilliant Michael Buffon, who runs Taloa now. He directed the show, and perhaps they put sketches together called Airport 2000. And it was just a look on the Asian staff at airports like Heathrow in comedy sketches. And that was all just done on a shoestring. You know, they borrowed costumes, they hired the Riverside studios at their own cost, you know, and people came. You know, when work is created for audience and you know who your audience is, then people will come.
Yeah.
You know? And not just those people, everybody else will come because the buzz comes. And then a year later, he put a show together called Bollywood 2000, which was my introduction to the company. So Pravesh was an old friend and colleague of mine anyway. We'd worked together a lot at Waterman's as well.
Okay.
And he asked me to come and read for this play that he was doing, which is a kind of homage to Hindi cinema of the 70s and 80s. And it was called Bollywood 2000, Yet Another Love Story. And it was a bit tongue-in-cheek. And then my journey with Rifco started then 20 years ago. And 20 years later, here I am as an associate director at the company. You know, I think Prav was looking for some creative support. He put out for the post of an associate director. I interviewed for it and I landed it, you know, and I went through the same process as everybody else does. I think we come from the same place. You know, he grew up in Slough, I grew up in Harrow. You know, we're both kind of Desi Punjabis, you know, mummy's boys. We've both had the same experiences, so we get each other. And I think when we're connecting on a creative level, we don't have to explain anything to each other. We just coming from, you know.
You just know, you kind of, you say something like, you don't have to say anymore. I know.
Like I said, the backgrounds are the same, so the playing field is equal. Do you see what I mean? There's no explanation needed. The job, and then literally within months of landing the gig, he said to me, right, this was October 2018. I just finished doing The Village at Stratford, directed by Nadia Fall. And and I started my job, and he said to me, right, we need to decide what you're directing next year. And I went, he goes, yeah, he goes, there's no messing about. He goes, you come from a background of 25 odd years, by that time, 26 years of experience. That's got to be worth something. You know, here to prop me up. I want to give you the platform to be able to start making your own work and go on that journey. And literally a month later, we were in Leeds talking to the real Mushraf Asghar Mushi, interviewing him about his experience on educating Yorkshire. And outside of that, I came home, I uploaded those tapes. Prav went away and started putting together some kind of a plot and timeline. And then in January of 19, we were in development workshops. And then the summer of 19, we were in rehearsals for a fully blown production of that show, to do great work and celebrate so much about young British Asian youth culture, but also about this phenomenal guy, Mushraf Asghar, overcame this kind of debilitating stammer and found his place in the world,
Yeah. And that was, I watched it, it was beginning of lockdown when Rifco put it online, and it was incredible. I think everything, all of the elements and how the rap was sort of incorporated into it. How was that process from obviously meeting the actual Musharraf to putting on a play about his story, and then
it was all a whirlwind, if I'm really honest. When I look back now, I think about being in that hotel room, in the conference suite at this hotel in Leeds, meeting Mushi, interviewing him, and then being at the opening night of that show was all in less than 11 months, I'd say. And actually, funny enough, I don't know if people know this, but the idea of incorporating rap, I always knew that I wanted to use some kind of urban voice within the first thing I do, whether it was rap, whether it was music, whether it was something, because that's where I come from.
Yeah.
British South Asian celebration of two cultures, and that's what Rifco does brilliantly. So I knew there'd be an element of music or something in it. When we were interviewing Mushi, at the end of it, I did a kind of coffee with Karan kind of. I think we're going to do at the end of this as well. And I said to him, one of the questions I asked him is, what kind of music do you listen to? And he said rap music. That was in a quick fire round. And I also asked him something about dead or alive, who would you like to have dinner with? Any three people. And one of them was, I think it was, I might be wrong, but I think it was either Biggie or Tupac or someone like that. And I knew straight away that something, alarm bells started ringing. So when we turned the cameras off, I said to him, why is it rap? What does rap mean to you? And he goes, well, because of my stammer, what I do is I have headphones on and I learn the lyrics. And then because when I learn them, I'm able to recite them back in time without stammering.
Okay.
So Prav and I just looked at each other and we went, that's it. That's exactly what it is. How is Mushi going to be able to talk to us, the character on stage, without having huge gaps of pauses or stammering? And that is to incorporate an inner voice through spoken word and rap. And that's what we did,
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't actually know that. It was, I know he listened to music, but I didn't realize that the rap was actually so personal to him, and I think that makes it even more incredible because that's very authentic from Mushi as a person to actually put on rap, not just any genre.
We went out of our way to make a music video, then we did a rap video with rap stuff, car and all that kind of stuff. It was like you said, it was real for him. It was personal for him.
Yeah.
Invited him to the rehearsal room actually to watch the first showing of the first cut, and he was in tears. Like, it sounds horrible to say he was speechless to someone that has a stammer, but it genuinely, he was like, I can't believe you guys have put my life into a song, and then turned it into a rap video. So it was really fulfilling for us as a company to be a story.
No, definitely, and thank you, so much for doing that for him, but also to show that for us as a community. I'm sure a lot of people sort of appreciated that. As you said, the buzz kind of brought everyone to see that.
Yeah.
And following on from that, do you have any, or what would you say are your future aims in Rifco Theatre in terms of bringing it forwards?
So since I've been there, one of the main things or one of the main responsibilities I have is to look after what we call the Rifco Associates Program. So every year, Rifco puts out, as you do, and so many wonderful associates of South Asian artists have applied as well over the last year or so. So thank you for that.
Okay.
So we opened a window of kind of, unsolicited ideas of scripts. So we put a general parameter So last year we put out writer performers. This year we put out kind of a monologue. We wanted to celebrate the 21 years of Rifco as a company, and we wanted to do it through monologues told by kind of voices, British South Asian voices.
Yeah.
That's kind of, we put like a slight parameter on what we're looking for. And then people who have always wanted to either write or perform or have an idea that's been sitting in their bottom drawer for 3 years and thought, I don't know what to do with it now, we give that opportunity to those people to send in their ideas or their scripts, and then Prav and I read it. We have a third party that sits on our kind of panel afterwards. This wonderful Pooja guy, who's a phenomenal director and all, and celebrated performer in her own right. And then we sit and we interview the shortlist, and then we make a shortlist, and then we send out emails and go, congratulations, you're going to be working with us for the next X amount of months, and we'll be helping you to develop your idea and give you a toolkit of learning the craft of developing pieces of writing. And that's kind of what I do. That's my main day-to-day job at Rifco, is to look after its program, but also to look after the digital arm of the company, because as we've realized over the last 12 months, digital content is everything.
Yeah.
And we've been doing it as a company since day dot. Prav was making behind the scenes videos for shows 20 years ago, so it's just something that we've developed further since I've been there. But that's the aim. The aim is to take Rifco into its next 21 years and target a younger audience, because young people, for some reason or another, don't feel like, for many reasons actually, don't feel welcome to the theatre, because it's seen as a kind of middle class thing to do.
Oh, for sure.
Not culturally kind of inviting for them, which is what we try to change as well. But also, even putting on shows like Mushy, we had the youngest audience we've ever had. When we look at statistics of ticket buyers and inquiries and all that, we've had the youngest audience we've ever had as a company. So that's my idea. And look, and I'm not even going to lie, the idea is to go on and run a company like Rifco, or be running Rifco when Prav, decides to, or whatever. I'm not going to lie. That's the idea. The idea is to keep pushing those boundaries that he's created and keep telling those stories, because nobody else is doing it.
No one else is doing it.
That when I go to the theatre, I go, oh, that's me. Or I reckon that's my mum, that's my auntie, that's my uncle. Nobody else is quite doing it the way that Rifco does it. So I the aim is to keep doing that.
Exactly. If nobody else is doing it, then you've got to find ways of doing it yourself. And I think what you mentioned with the associates program, I guess that's maybe not on your end, but I guess on someone else's end, it's quite like an easy way. You don't have to put on a massive show. It's quite a simple way to get people involved, especially if people have written their own work and it's just sitting there, and then they're not having that opportunity to share it. That's great. You're giving those people the opportunity to share it in that way. And the digital element, I love that, because especially when we're not obviously going to the theatre, so it's been an incredible way of just sort of watching behind. I love watching behind the scenes and like the process. So thank you for putting those out.
It's me. I love it. I love knowing the stuff that isn't there for you to see, or the bits that you're not supposed to see. Behind the scenes videos, particularly of stage shows, films and stuff, because films paints a canvas for you, right? Whereas with theatre, you use your imagination a lot. And it's a visual medium rather than a vocal medium, as it were. And it's so lovely to see the process of getting into a rehearsal room, or being able to go into the studio and watch the artists or rappers like Rackstar record the tracks that end up in the show and all that. I think the audiences love all of that, and we've seen it with the numbers that we get for people watching it.
Yeah, and I think it also just kind of shows people the amount of work that actually goes into making shows. I guess watching a show, you might think it's all easy, and then you see the videos and like, oh my god, that influenced that. And it's a really great way.
Even like if you think about a show Rifco did a couple of years ago called Miss Mina and the Masala Queens, we did a behind the scenes video of the boys getting ready, properly makeup outfits. It was a show about drag queens, right? So, we did this behind the scenes video of what it takes for them, the cast, to get ready for the show. Excuse me, I've got a really tickly throat.
No.
And even that was just an insight, because when you go to the theatre, you see, this amazingly glammed up kind of characters, but what does it take? And the amount of views that we got on that was unbelievable. Not that it's about views, but it means that people,
people were genuinely kind of engaged in that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And obviously, as well as Rifco Theatre, you're also a presenter on Sunrise Radio. The question is, what are your sort of favourite things about being a presenter, and how do you feel it compares or contrasts to your other creative things that you do?
Okay, so let me tell you this, right? It's quite interesting because no one's asked me this before, so it's really nice for you to.
Okay, first time.
What when I joined BBC Asian Network back in 2005 or six, I'd done some guest presenting while I was at EastEnders there.
Mm.
Before they were a digital show, when they were back at Pebble Mill and all that kind of stuff. And then when they became a national show and I had finished my contract at Enders, they offered me a regular show. And I never really had any aspirations to be a presenter of any kind. I've hosted a lot of events. I'd done some stuff for Desi DNA in the past for the BBC and all that, but it was theatre related and all that. So it was quite. So for me, when I do presenting stuff, it is escapist from everything else that I do.
Yeah.
And that's why I used to enjoy it. So when Asian Network offered me the show way back when, I was like, yeah, I'd love to do this because it gives me the opportunity to connect with people because most people only knew me at that point as Addy Ferreira from EastEnders. They didn't really know my real name.
Yeah.
You know, I was called Addy for years on the street, you know, and I thought it was a really good opportunity for people to get to know me and my real name other than Tony from Bendit or Addy from EastEnders. And I was there for about 5 or 6 years, I think, maybe a bit longer. And even after I left my show, I continued to cover other shows for a while. And then there was a massive gap because I started, you know, I went back into to the theatre and I was touring and I wasn't able to commit and I was shooting films abroad and all that kind of stuff. And then about almost 4 years ago, Sunrise Radio got in touch and they said, listen, you know, we're changing our lineup. We're making it younger. You know, the perception of Sunrise Radio is that all old people like our parents sit at home and listen to it, but it's now a national station. It's DAB. We're going to make the content more relevant. Presenters be younger, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And I was backing and forth with them for a while. And eventually it got to the point where they came to me and they said, look, we've got this slot for weekend breakfast, which means that, you know, I was be doing 7 to 10 on Saturday and Sunday mornings. And by 10 o'clock, I'll be free. So even if I'm rehearsing, if I'm in a show, I could still, in London, I could still make it to a matinee. You know, it was always about making sure that my first priority was me as a creative person.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I accepted. And, you know, and what I realized when I went back to it after so many years is that I love engaging with the public. Even though you're sat on your own in a radio station, you know, you might have teams of people, but you're in that room by yourself and you are talking to X amount of thousands of people. And the only way you know you're talking to them is from their interaction because you don't get, there's no counter on the thing going 10,000 people are listening or 100,000.
From the response.
With the insurgence of WhatsApp and text messages, and you know, back in the day, people used to call up and go, "Hi, I'm listening to something." Don't know, WhatsApp you and go, "Hey, Ameet, lovely to hear you on air. It's great to start my day with you," and all that. And that gives me absolute joy that people are waking up in the morning and they are tuning in, and the first thing they're listening to is my voice on the weekend, and they stick with you for however long they stick, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. They're getting their weekend started with me, and that brings me absolute joy, and it gives me reason to wake up on a Saturday and Sunday morning at 5:30.
I was going to say that's like your weekend, but I think that it's great. It's having that impact. It starts people's weekend off in a great. And I love what you said about you're always known as, you know, Adi from EastEnders or Tony from Bendit Like Beckham. I guess sort of being a presenter, you were still able to be creative, but it was more creative, not putting on a character, but just as you and putting your own twist on it.
It is a character. It's a higher end version of yourself, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's me. It's a version of me. You know, there's no costume and there's no other name. It's just me being as open and candid as I can be. You know, I talk about my kid, I talk about my family life, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's just nice to share it with people. And the most important thing, again, a lot like Rifco, is that Sunrise is now 30 years old. It's been service for the community for 30 years. And to be part of that kind of an institution is a real honor, you know.
Kind of, yeah. When I was younger, as you said, I always thought Sunrise Radio was for like older people. So it's really great that you try to reach out to a younger audience. And I've seen some of, obviously you record it whilst doing Insta lives with people. I think that's a way to engage even a younger audience because people know of them more. So yeah, that's
and that's only because of the pandemic. You know, I used to do all my interviews on the phone or in person, and stopped. I thought, hold on, I can reach a further clientele of interviews now because nobody needs their homes. I'm talking to people in Bombay, I'm talking to people in Australia, I'm talking to people. And then I thought, actually, I could do this on air and on Instagram at the same time. And then on air is gone because we don't have a playback service on Sunrise,
Oh,
unfortunately.
okay. Oh,
But
no.
is with the interviews, they live on Insta, IGTV. So people, the numbers continue to go up for those. So now they're archived and they're there forever, which is great.
Yeah, it's a way to combine the two.
Yeah.
We got a couple of questions that people sent in. One question was, what has your biggest setback been, and how did you personally overcome that?
My biggest setback. That's a good question, actually. I would probably say my biggest setback was, and again, this is the first time I'm saying this. It was probably post EastEnders. What happens with EastEnders is that you kind of get stuck into a system. It's like a machine, and as enjoyable it is to be there, when you leave, no one really knows in the industry that you've left, because what tends to happen is casting directors at that time. It's very different there now, and I've got friends there now. A lot of the actors are allowed to go and do other stuff when they're off, when they've got time off, and they're allowed to go and do stuff on other channels and all that kind of stuff. That wasn't really the case when we were there. There were clauses could do stuff, but it was always quite difficult. So what happens is when you're EastEnders, casting directors know that you're in EastEnders. They know you're not available for anything else.
Yeah.
And because the actors in that show are not available for anything else, casting directors tend not to watch it because they'll be like, oh, that person would be perfect. Oh, I'm not going to get them. What's the point?
Oh, because they're obviously on this, yeah.
So when you leave, they don't really know that you've left and you're available.
Because they don't watch the show.
Right? So what happens is you get caught up in this thing where, you're with the same agent and your agent's like, yeah, don't worry, there's stuff on the horizon, it'll be fine and blah, blah, blah. And then you realize that, for 6 months, 8 months, for me and some of the other people that were in my family, there was a 12-month lull of not really much happening. And also people that make those decisions know that there's a tag of that character that comes with you as well. So people for a while will only remember you as Addy from EastEnders or whatever. Strangely, there's a large percentage of the public out there that think Albert Square is a real place and people are real. One of my favorite stories ever is Raji James, who played my older brother in EastEnders. He played Ash. He was in the bill, and then over EastEnders after a little gap. And he said once we went live on air on Enders, he was in the supermarket once, and this little old lady came up to him, and she went, "Excuse me," she goes, "Why did you leave the police force to become an actor?" So he thought that the bill was real, but knew that EastEnders.
Oh gosh.
So it's just perception, right? People see you 4 times, 5 times a week in their living rooms, so they think that you person or that place exists. So yeah, I think my biggest setback was that 12 months or so of kind of not really knowing whether I was going to be able to pick this up again. And and then I changed agents, and when I changed agents, they then wrote to all the new my previous casting directors that I'd worked with and said, hey, we know that you've worked with Ameet before, he's now available. Then there was a steady resurgence of interest and work that came from that. So I think that sort of that 12 months between leaving EastEnders and then it picking up again was quite a difficult year.
I think that's going to be refreshing for people to hear, because I think just the perception is like, okay, obviously it's amazing to be on EastEnders, but people just think that's it, you've made it, but you don't realise, like you said, when you're off it, the jobs you don't get, and people not really knowing you and then have to kind of make your foot into the industry again. People don't see that. They just kind of see what they see on the screen. And did you say that's kind of changed now, or is that still
apparently? I can only go on what people who have worked there recently or work there now have say. It's a bit flexible because obviously we live in the world of social media and exposure, and I remember years ago talking to Paminda Nagra after we did Bend It, and she went on to do ER. And their format was you shoot for 9 months, and then for 3 months that you get off, they encourage you to go and do other stuff, because they're saying you're either going to take the ER audience to that project, or if that project is successful, you will bring that audience to ER. Makes complete sense to me. But ER is not a soap. It's a drama which people dying and surviving and all that kind of stuff. So it's a bit more kind of you're a bit more able to remove yourself from it, I guess. But yeah, I think I'd like to believe now that people who are running that show and other shows like it are a bit more open-minded to kind of generating more traction for the show.
Yeah, no, definitely. And something sort of following on from that, are there any barriers that you faced in the industry personally? Either, I guess, just in terms of creativity, or I guess being South Asian, because that.
Of course, and they continue. When I first started, there was a lovely actor director called Hamed Singh Kalurai. I remember having a conversation with him in the bar at Waterman's, and I was saying, because this is when I started to get a little bit more woke and understand that the reason why these people are putting on their own work is because nobody else was giving them any.
Yeah.
So through that conversation, he was saying, oh, I started 10 years ago. This was then in the early 90s, I guess. He goes, and I've seen things get better. And then 10 years later, I was having those conversations with younger actors going in the 10 years I've been doing this, I've seen things change, but they haven't changed enough. We're still having that conversation. Me and you are still talking about it now in 2021. You've had to set up, an online Instagram stroke kind of content page area for South Asians to come together and put their heads together and see how they could be creative, because there's not enough work out there, and so if we're still talking about, being held back or setbacks and all that, then of course I haven't got jobs that other people have because of either the color of my skin or haven't been seen in the first instance just because of my name, and I'm sure that's happened loads.
Oh, for sure.
You don't get seen for stuff unless the breakdown says clearly of Asian heritage or Middle Eastern or Spanish or Arabic, or
Something that could look like.
it goes on and on and on, but not for anything else. It has to be
Yeah.
brown, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, I've never had an issue with. I've grown up with actors who were like, I don't know why I have to keep playing Asian parts. Why can't I play, Antony and Cleopatra at the National? I'm like, well, what do you bring to that? What experience do you bring to playing a character that isn't of South Asian heritage? The reason why I get the part that I get is because hopefully I was the best person for that part when I've auditioned for it, but also they've seen that I can bring something to that character that adds a dimension of it. And no matter how much you say, 70% of every character roughly is you.
Is you, yeah.
Everything else is in the words is what sort of smudges that a little bit. You might be saying stuff that you as a person might not say, or do stuff that you as a person won't do. But the physical element and the way that you approach delivering that dialogue is coming from here, right?
Yeah.
Not where existential. So, yeah. I mean, I could go on forever.
No, that's a really interesting point, because I guess kind of our stories, you are going to bring your own upbringing, your own experience, and that authenticity to make the character more truthful. So, we are the best people to play those roles. And kind of going again to 19 years ago, what are some things that you have seen develop in the industry in terms of representation? Because obviously it's been 19 years and there have been changes. Obviously there's still a lot of work to do, but what are some positive things that you didn't see back then that you are seeing now?
I don't even have to go back 19 years, RD. And just in the last 12 months, I've seen a huge change. I've seen commercials being so much more multicultural and multicolored, if I say that. I've seen shows that have been made in the last 12 months that people haven't really paid much attention to the background of the person playing it. I've just almost contradicting myself now, but they've just gone, oh, this is the right person for the part.
Yeah.
And it's been a huge jump. I mean, I'm sure, almost certain that Black Lives Matter has had a huge impact on the people making those decisions. But also, I would say that the other factor of that is that the people making those decisions are, and I don't mean to be ageist here, but they are younger people who have had experiences with people of different backgrounds. They've been at school or uni with people from all over the world, or at least heritage from all over the world, and so they know those people as equals. So people making those casting choices, or people making those production choices, or directors directing stuff, or producers putting on stuff, they are now of an age group that have had experiences with people who clearly see people of different backgrounds as equal to them. And that was what the problem was. Decisions were being made by old I could say this, old white men in ivory towers that didn't really have the experience of being outside of that ivory tower. Now the decision makers and the gatekeepers are changing. And that's why there's just in the last 12 months, there's been a huge change, and long may it continue, you know. Yeah, I could talk about 19 years ago, but actually the last 12 months have been really, really important.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because thinking about it more recently, I guess subconsciously, I've also seen, especially adverts. I feel like there are so many adverts with a lot more representation. I didn't really think about that. So even more recently, and I think, would you say it's to do with exposure as well for the people behind the scenes, and as you said, what they've been exposed to in their life? They're going to obviously have a more open mind to it.
I mean, that's exactly what it comes down to. Like I said, because the generation of the people that are making those choices have changed. You know, it's become younger. And again, I don't, you know, it's not about age. It's just younger in thought. It's people that have had worldly experiences rather than people who've been in a big armchair in an office at the BBC for 40 years or whatever it is, making those choices. You know, what it comes down to. But also, we've got more content now, right?
Yeah.
We've got more writers, we've got more directors. We need much more. Trust me, there's not enough behind the camera from Black, Caribbean, and African backgrounds, or Asian, and you know, whether that, you know, it's a big umbrella, but you know, that's changing as well. People behind the camera and people making the content. And that's
so you are seeing more people than you used to see, kind of doing
for
that.
sure.
That's amazing.
That, you know, we as a company as well, Rifco, are part and parcel of that. We've had an associate that's been working with us called Christine Lala over the last almost 2 years now. She came through as a year one and went on to a year two. She's just directed a block of EastEnders. She's just about to do one of those detective series. I forget whether it's not Unforgiven, it's the other one. Murders, maybe, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, and there's a whole South Asian cast in those episodes of that detective series and all that, because she's told me some of the cast members that she's put in and all that. So now what's happening is, because there's someone of British South Asian descent behind the camera in charge making those decisions, they're now bringing those people from that background to the forefront and casting them in shows that we've never seen. You know, it's really important as well. Something that Riz said a couple of years ago. He said, you know, this is not about diversity. It's about inclusion. It's just being
yeah.
You know, diversity is almost another othering word. You know, like being.
Broad term.
No, you have to be inclusive. Don't include us in the circle. Don't put us outside the circle.
Yeah.
That's what it comes.
And a lot of people can. I feel like there's been more conversations about on screen, or we need more kind of representation on screen, but what it really is if you have that bigger push behind, naturally they are going to push to have more on screen. So I think that's a massive thing that needs to change, and it's great to hear that is changing.
That's the thing that will be the big change. The more creative people we have from British South Asian backgrounds, or any kind of cultural backgrounds that aren't represented well enough, the more we will see on screen, because people are just not built for that mindset. If you're not from,
I
don't think they're doing anything wrong, and maybe they're not, but they just don't think outside when they read a character, they're seeing white 35-year-old, you know, or they're seeing, you know, white 70-year-old female, you know, that's all they're seeing. They're not seeing outside of that, you know, and then that's probably because the writer writing it has put that down as a description.
So it's in there.
Character, great. But if somebody's writing it who comes from a diverse or cultural background, they're going to write can be of any background, or they're going to write 70-year-old Pakistani woman in a hijab, you know, not 70-year-old white woman, you know, and then that's a clear vision. And also what happens is the pool of casting opens up as well, right? It means everyone's on an equal playing field, because when someone says any background, you can see 400 people for one part then, rather than the 6 that are available for Pakistani hijab women. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I think that's be the change. That will be the big change. The more that changes, the more you'll see a change.
Yeah, no, definitely. And as you said, it will open up the pool, and then, you know, you have seen an inclusive set of people, and then it comes down to the best person for that role, because then you've been fair in all other elements. Yeah, that's a really, really great thing to end on, before we go on to the fire round questions. But,
Yeah.
thank you for all of your insight. I think we've had a really, really interesting conversation, and you've sort of opened to my eyes to things that I hadn't thought about before. So thank you for sharing
No,
all your
you know,
insight.
with all these years under your belt, you just go, oh, I can only be honest.
Yeah. That's
I've got nothing to hide or worry about anymore. It's interesting, right? Because when I was only an actor, there was times where I'd be like, I can't say that because somebody might hear it and I might not get a job for it. But as soon as I became a creative, I remember having this conversation with Prav. I'm like, I don't care whether you give me a job now, because now I'm making work,
Mm.
and it might not be for me, but it will be for people that look like me. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
was the most joyous thing that came out of making Mushy. I did an interview during the lockdown, the first one, and it was a realization during the interview, and it was the fact that the thing I enjoyed the most is that I was making a work and a show that I wish was around when I was that age as an actor to play. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what drives me every day.
No, definitely, and that's a similar thing for me, because I mentioned in the previous interviews is that beginning of lockdown, I didn't know many South Asian creators. Now I was looking for platforms and Zoom calls and those kind of things myself, and I didn't see that, so I was just like, let me just make it and see what happens. So that's really great to relate to you.
Right.
Fantastic. Okay, so just going to go on to some fire round questions.
Come on then.
I made it a little bit easier because when I spoke to Raj, he was like, they were quite intense, and I was like, yeah, they were. So they were a little bit more fun. Okay, so question 1 is, do you prefer
What the rules? Do I have to? Are there any rules? Do I have to answer the first thing that comes to my mind? What is it, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, like, you can take your time with it. It doesn't have to be like snappy. Just whatever
Cool.
comes. Okay, so do you prefer like a mountain vibe or a beach vibe?
Oh, beach vibe. My wife will tell you I go on holiday and don't move for 7 days. I give her 2 days for us to go and explore, and that's it. Yeah, always a beach.
Same. I like the views of the mountain, but I feel like if I was to spend a few days, definitely beach, just to chill.
You can have a view of the mountain. That's fine.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
Cool. Number 2, what is your favorite cuisine?
I would say Pan Asian. Anything that is from the Far East, I would say. Japanese, Chinese, Thai. Malaysian, not so much, but yeah, anything from that part.
Any particular dish?
Huge fan of sushi. Huge fan of anything that is saucy with rice, like just your typical black bean sauces and all that.
Yeah. Oh god.
But I do love Japanese food particularly.
Good choice. Okay, so following on from that, what is your favorite dessert?
I'm not a dessert person.
Oh no.
I don't have a sweet tooth. My wife hates me for it because I don't share or indulge any of it, so she ends up eating the whole thing rather than half. But I do like a bit of chocolate. I'm a big fan of Dairy Milk.
Oh, classic. Can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Cool. Number 4, would you rather live one life that lasts 1,000 years or live 10 lives that last 100 years each? So one life, 1,000, 10 years.
See,
10
this is an interesting question to ask an actor because I feel like I've lived 1,000 lives.
That's so true.
So I'm happy with the one life for 1,000 years and playing other characters.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like, I don't know, I would just want to go with 10 just to experience life in different.
Oh God, I don't think it's punishment more than once.
I guess because you've done so many roles, you're like, right, I'm sick of it. Just me now.
It's all stuck up. Yeah.
Cool. Final question is, what is one thing, if you could say it now, that you would tell to younger Ameet, to younger self? Sorry, big question.
No, it's a great question. It's a great question. I always felt like if ever somebody asked me this, I'd have an answer. But clearly, I guess the cliche would be, "Don't worry, everything's going to be okay," or "You can do it," because you have moments of doubt in this industry. But I think the one thing I would tell my younger self, if I could, is don't do it. Make of that what you will.
Cool. That is a perfect one to end on, guys. Well, been absolutely lovely chatting to you today. Again, thank you for taking the time. I hope you've enjoyed speaking with me. This will be out in a couple of weeks. I will. The date is yet to be confirmed. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me, Ameet,
It was
today.
my absolute pleasure, Artie. Thank you so much for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and I think I'll end with the way I started. And I just think what you're doing in order to champion and support South Asian artists within the arts is phenomenal, and long may it continue. And if I can be of any help or any support at any time, please do call on me.
Thank you. And again, thank you for your support this year, sharing everything. I think it's really sort of humbling for someone who's still kind of finding their way in the industry to have support from people in the industry is incredible. So thank you. And thank you to everyone who submitted questions as well.
Yes.
Cool. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your sunny day until the snow comes.
I'm about to go and do the school run now because it's the end of term.
Yeah.
They've only been back to school for 3 weeks and they're on holiday again.
Oh my God, it's like
Mental. Listen, Artie, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
no problem. All right, have a good day, everyone. Take care.